TotalEnergies is set to be poised to make another investment in Qatar's natural gas field. Simone Foxman has more from Doha. So Simone, what do we know about some of the finer details of this investment?
Well, Yusuf, sources tell us that this investment is going to be into a project called Northfield South. This is phase 2 of a massive project to expand Qatar's capacity to produce LNG. We got phase 1 details for Northfield East earlier this year. Total won an investment in that. We understood that the same companies that won stakes in Part 1 were likely to win stakes as well in Part 2, that the partners would be chosen out of there. The question now, as we likely get this announcement on Saturday, is the size of the stake sale. Last time, Total got a 6.25% stake in Northfield East. Does it get the same sort of amount? Is the structure even of these investments the same? But for Total, this is very important as it's watched natural gas LNG projects in Mozambique, in Russia, not work out so well, and it continues to push into natural gas. But we should emphasize here, this is not natural gas supply, this is not LNG supply that's going to help Europe in the near term. Best case, we're probably looking at first gas from this project, Northfield South, something like 2027.
And then speaking of foreign investments, analysts say that Wizz Air basically has extensive ambitions to expand its Saudi fleet after starting services to the kingdom next week. Just tie that together for us.
Yeah, next week we'll see Wizz Air start flights to Dammam from Rome, Vienna, as well as Abu Dhabi. But by the end of the decade, we could see 50 aircraft owned by Wizz Air operating in Saudi Arabia. So massive plans to expand its presence there. From what analysts say about management's intentions, about 50% of flights at that time would likely go to the broader Middle East. About a quarter would be domestic flights in Saudi Arabia, and then the rest might go between Europe and the kingdom. But this would be a massive expansion of Wizz Air's presence both in the region as well as in the kingdom itself. Already we knew that Wizz Air was exploring some sort of joint venture potentially with Saudi Arabia. But Sanford Bernstein analyst Alex Irving says Wizz Air could have a particular edge here because its cost base is likely to be lower than Flyness and some of the other low-cost carriers in the region. Of course, this all helping Saudi Arabia in its push to boost tourism by a massive amount by 2030. I think the latest projections were something like 55 million non-pilgrimage visitors per year by 2030.
And then a bunch of economic data as well coming out from across the region. What were some of the highlights?
Yeah, Bloomberg did these surveys of economists looking at GDP projections for the end of 2022, and the message is the Gulf is doing extraordinarily well, almost uniformly upgrading their projections for GDP by the end of the year. Saudi Arabia leading the pack, expecting an annual GDP of 7.9% growth there. Some of that, of course, contributed to by these oil sales. Qatar, a bit of the outlier with economists downgrading those projections very slightly to 4.5% year on year. The Gulf really leading the global economy this year. GCC expected 6.6%, so essentially double global GDP growth, only dragged down on the Middle East region as well by the likes of Jordan, Bahrain, more modest growth there, and Lebanon, which is expected to see a contraction.